The topic of today's objective in culinary nutrition is grilling. Now, the objective of grilling is to maximize your flavor profile. The first step to doing that is getting your grill really, really hot and making sure that your slats are really hot. This is to achieve what's called the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction occurs between 300 and 500 degrees, and that's what actually browns the outside. That's the browning of surface proteins on the meat that gives meat that meaty flavor. So what I want to show you first are two different cuts commonly available in most commercial restaurants. We have a beef tenderloin here, and we have a ribeye here. Now, if you look at the difference between the two, the ribeye has a much larger concentration of surface fat and marbling. Now, when I say surface fat, I mean this right here, the outside fat cap. Much of this will be cut off during the butchery process, but the industry standard is a 1/4 inch trim. Now, to further maximize your flavor profile, what we're going to do is we're going to salt and pepper our meat right before we put it on the grill. Now, you never want to salt your meat well in advance, because what starts to happen is the salt pulls the moisture out of the meat, making it somewhat dry. So we're going to cook these two pieces side by side, but nutritionally, you really want to look at the fat content. Obesity is becoming an epidemic in the United States and worldwide. And part of this is because people consume too much fat and too much protein. So the portion size that I cut for this tenderloin is about 5½ ounces. The amount of meat that you should eat during a week period of time should be about the size of a deck of playing cards. This is equivalently that size. Now, if you look at the size of this ribeye, this is probably 1½ times what you would eat, and this is considered a smaller cut by restaurant standards. This is about 12 ounces. Many restaurants cut them 16 ounces and up, with some restaurants even putting steaks on the grill that weigh upwards of 2 pounds. So as you can see, when I put this on, I'm getting a really nice searing, and you can hear it. These are the elements of flavor. Now, as you can see, while we're cooking on the grill, much of the fat is dripping away. Now, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to turn it this way to get those really cool cross grill marks that you see at your local steakhouse. You don't want to turn your meat more than is necessary, probably 1 to 2 times per side. The more you move it, the more you're going to lose moisture. And you never want to use a fork. You always want to use tongs. Now, while that's cooking, we're going to take our grilled vegetables, and this grilled vegetable recipe is in your textbook. I've marinated all of these vegetables in olive oil. Olive oil is a monounsaturated fat, and this is considered to be the healthiest fat you can consume. And again, because there are slats in the grill, we're getting the oil to drip off so it's not sitting in the oil. Now I'm getting a nice browning reaction on my steaks. Now, fat doesn't necessarily make people fat. Excess calories make people fat. But fat is extremely calorie dense. It has 9 grams. There are 9 grams of fat. I messed up. Fat doesn't necessarily make people fat. Excess calories do. But fat is considered to be extremely calorie dense, and it is stored in your body more easily as fat than carbohydrates or protein. Now, when we're talking about protein, the tenderloin right here would be a really good example of a lean, high-quality protein. And that would be the better nutritional choice. You can make this taste good with the addition of sauces, but primarily if the meat is fresh, it's been handled correctly, it's seasoned correctly with a little bit of salt and pepper, and cooked correctly, which to my mind is about medium to medium rare, you don't need to add a whole lot. Now let's talk about vegetables. I'm grilling these vegetables right here, and grilled vegetables can either be eaten warm or they can be eaten cold. And again, I'm doing the cross grill marks on there because presentation is everything, and this is also one of those elements of flavor. When you're talking about grilling, you're talking about grill marks. So without the absence of grill marks, you may as well just cook them. You may as well cook them in the oven. But part of the disadvantage to cooking them in the oven is that they're still going to be sitting in a small amount of whatever it was that you marinated them in, as opposed to the fat dripping off while you're cooking it. Grilling is considered a dry method of cooking, and this helps to maintain the nutrient density of the vegetables. Anytime you cook vegetables in water, you're leaching out some of the nutrients, which definitely will have an impact on the nutrient density when you go to eat it. Now, when you're going to cut vegetables for grilling, you need to cut them uniformly so they all cook about the same time. You don't want one vegetable to be puree and another vegetable to be raw. You want them to cook consistently and cleanly. Now, when you buy vegetables, you want to buy them as close to the time that you're going to cook them as possible. Here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, we have an amazing farmers market. And I strongly suggest, if you have a farmers market in your area, that you go explore it and talk to local farmers. And not only that, but buying from a local producer rather than a large chain grocery store, you help to keep the local economy robust. And you're eating as close to the ground as possible, meaning the time in transit is very little, so the vegetables aren't sitting there oxidizing and leaching out nutrients. Well, while I'm finishing grilling these vegetables, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about portion size. If you think about the average portion size that most people eat in this country, it's way, way, way too big. So for the duration of this class, I would like for you to think about the portion sizes that you eat and how you make your fat count. Now, the recipe for the grilled vegetables is on page 369 of your textbook, and the recipe for the rice pilaf that's on our finished plate over here is on page 380. And you'll notice that we used brown rice instead of white rice because brown rice is more nutritionally dense, and it also has a higher fiber content, which generally helps you feel fuller longer. Now, the grilled vegetables, I used the balsamic vinaigrette recipe that comes with the recipe on page 369. And again, I used olive oil to marinate these. And the reason I use olive oil again is because it's a monounsaturated fat. Now, monounsaturated fat is the healthiest fat that you can consume. And most monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated, are liquid at room temperature. Most saturated fats are solid at room temperature. If you think about butter, lard, fryer shortening, all of those things will solidify if you put them into a refrigerator. Now, my challenge to you as culinary nutritionists is to go to your local fast food restaurant, any fast food restaurant, order a small order of French fries, and squeeze out each one of those French fries and catch what drips out into a little cup. Take this home and refrigerate it and see what this oil looks like when it's in your refrigerator. That's pretty similar to what it's going to look like. Once you put it inside your heart. So think about these things. And if you have friends that are vegetarian and they don't necessarily eat red meat, a good substitute for the grilled tenderloin that we did here would be a duck breast. If you have friends that don't eat animal protein whatsoever, you can use portobello mushrooms in place of that, and you can even mix it with your grilled vegetable salad and beef that up a little bit. Well, this was the grilling segment of Culinary Nutrition, and we'll see you back here for the searing and sautéing episode. Thanks.